Hello. Trans Star Kinfolk is a blog that aims to be a safe place for those who are trans star and non-human in any way. We encourage people to ask questions, submit stories, thoughts, or anything that comes to mind. We want to show people that yes, we do exist, as well as provide a safe space to meet and share opinions. ANQAA asked, read gender, kid type, influences on each other. I know that some people who half joke, half seriously, that their gender is their kin type, because elves and cats and hawks and such have different gender manifestations than humans. So female hawk looks very different from female human, much more gender neutral. Male elf looks much more androgynous than male human, etc. Response. I've heard of this before. I know for myself being an avian means that even if I was female, a breast would be unwelcome. So I can see where that would come from. Haven. Navel Gazed asked, I personally don't see a lot of correlation between my being otherkin and my being trans star. But before people spout stuff like, you just want to feel oppressed, it kind of makes me weep at their ignorance. Elsie. Reply. I think there's a difference in there being a correlation and there being a comparison. I mean, I wouldn't say that my gender is correlated to my otherkin identity. In fact, they're unrelated in that regard. But the feelings that are there, they're comparable. Unrelated, but comparable, if that makes sense. But yeah, generally, yeah, and then some sort of anime face. Anshin. Spirit of the Forest blog asked, I actually think my gender is connected to my otherkinness. Of course, I realize that it's not for most. I'm just throwing out my experience here. I am genderless and I'm a shapeshifter. I feel like as a shapeshifter, I have no real form or gender. Just throwing that out there. Smiley face. I made a post on my blog earlier that goes into a bit more depth. Reply. Star nod, star. Makes sense. I know I've talked to several shapeshifters who feel similar to you on the subject. Thanks for commenting, Anshin. Anonymous asked, I'm sort of wondering what this is. I understand perfectly how a person could be their gender in the wrong body, considering everything else that can go wonky with the body and all. However, I don't get how a person could be another species entirely in the wrong body. I guess I'm sort of wondering about the logic behind it. Response. I'm not sure what sort of logic you're looking for. My logic for my otherkin identity followed the same sort of general path as my logic for my gender identity. But it took less time to figure out my kin type because it's something I've known and been certain about for much, much longer. With my gender, I went through a process of realizing that I didn't fit into a category. That is, in my case, female, the category of my birth assignment and society's perception of me. So I thought I must therefore belong to category B, that is, male. I hadn't heard of non-binary identities yet, since this was my first foray into this sort of discussion about gender and gender identity. Then, somewhere along the way, I realized I didn't fit into category B either, and I therefore must belong to some as yet undiscovered, to me anyway, category. And that's how I came to discover that I belong to category C, being non-binary. Specifically, I'm gender fluid. It was a lot of if-then sort of trial and error. With my otherkin identity, it followed a similar pattern, but I started when I was younger. I felt in my heart and in my mind that I was not human. I understood it meant to be human. That's what my parents were. And it's what my brother was too. So I should have been human too, but it didn't fit. I was lucky enough to live in a wooded environment, so I started playing games to pretend I could play at being different animals or different mythological species. When I started playing at being elven, something clicked into place. I found my answer to what I might be if I weren't human, because up until that point, I didn't know there was any other plausible answer. This was something I held on to, but shoved to the back of my mind people had to be human after all. That's what my body said I was, and it's what society said I was. Then I started questioning my gender, and I started thinking, well, if my body and society can't tell me what my gender is, then why should I believe what they say about my species too? If it's possible to find an identity in one category different from what empirical evidence suggested, why not in another? Along the way, I found the otherkin community. I found that there were others who, like me, had found comfort and solace in the idea that they didn't have to be human, that they could be who they were meant to be, regardless of what their bodies or what society told them they were. To me, that was logical. To me, it falls from one point to another. If you're looking for more of the science to back it up, for the time being, you'll have to take our experience as evidence, because there currently is no scientific research to back up what we know is true about ourselves. But in the future, science will catch up, and we'll be able to point to articles and studies that prove us right. For the time being, I don't think we need any outside validation or proof. My existence and the fact that I feel right with my current identity is proof enough for me. That's all it comes down to. I feel wrong, like I'm lying to myself, and like I'm lost almost when I try to claim I'm human, or when I try to convince myself it's all in my head. I've done this with my gender identity as well, and with other truths that I personally know about my world and the way I navigate it. No, I mean truths in a very personal self-identification sense here. I know that I feel right when I can be honest with myself, and I feel right in the way I currently identify. If that's not a satisfactory answer, then I'm sorry. I wish I could explain better, but that's all I have for now. Others are, of course, more than welcome to weigh in, as I'm sure our other mods may do as well. Best wishes, Anshin. That don't compare being trans to otherkin anon can just go away. First Rising Vibe says, I'm also trans and otherkin, as you of course already know, and I do equate them fairly often because they're pretty friggin' close. Bulleted list, stigma. You can't tell what someone is by looking at them. You can't tell what you are by looking at the mirror. You have to give a lot of thought to everything regarding your identity in order to realize what you are. Both trans and otherkin people may get dysphoria. They may also not get dysphoria, or get it only sometimes. Or, if one is both trans and kin, they may also get dysphoric over one thing. Incidentally, dysphoria isn't a word unique to trans experience. Look it up. You have to come out over and over again, and you will always encounter people who will tell you that you're just confused. I would like to make this list longer, but I'm tired and upset at that Anon who doesn't particularly want to talk over your blog. But ugh, seriously, both being trans and being otherkin can be crudely explained as having a body and mind that don't necessarily match. I don't see what the bloody difference is. All the love to you, Siding, Artemis. Reply, thanks, smiley face. This covers a lot of points that people bringing up the otherkin appropriation stuff, especially the fact that it's kind of difficult to appropriate a word from yourself, not to mention the fact that dysphoria is seen as a ton of things other than gender way. Okay? Boy. There is so much. I feel like I should point out that I'm reading from a Tumblr called transkinfolk.tumblr.com. It's only 3 pages long, but it is a fascinating read. For example, otherkin problems, species dysphoria if you shave your body hair, gender dysphoria if you don't shave. Eat a bag of dicks. It's quite awful. Otherkin problem, when things that relieve your species dysphoria make your gender dysphoria worse, and vice versa. When you feel like you don't really have a strong tie to masculinity or femininity because your kin type doesn't demonstrate any gender roles that translate into human gender roles, apart from during mating, that is. Smiley face. Was this meant to be a question, or did you mean to send this to little otherkin things and problems, or because I'm slightly confused, .. parentheses. Though yes, I've known several people who identify with this statement. Anshin. Fucking, oh boy. This oppression is maybe the most fake thing I've ever read. And that's really frustrating. Well, bye.